Welcome to Grieving Insomniacs. I am your host, Christy Haberman. I am glad you're here. Thanks for being a part of our community. A few disclaimers before we get started. I am a licensed therapist. However, this podcast is not to be considered mental health therapy or counseling. It is for entertainment purposes only and is not associated with my counseling practice, Christy Haberman Counseling Services. Thanks for showing up. Welcome to Grieving Insomniacs. This is your host, Christy Haberman, and Kai the Wonder Dog. She's snoring back there in the background. Took her out for a walk today, and she hurt her leg. She's getting to be kind of old, 13 years. As I was thinking when I was walking, I'm not sure that I'm ready for her to cross the Rainbow Bridge yet. But like the death of my son, we don't have a lot of control over that. And honestly, I'm a little scared because she was a major support when my son died. And I'm not sure what it's going to be like for me when she passes. That is going to be a traumatic situation. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone that's been listening to my podcast. I just did my Spotify Unwrapped, and I have people that follow on my show, and I don't know why I'm so surprised or shocked by that, but thank you to the people that do. I will keep making content as long as you want to continue to listen. And as always, I would love to hear your thoughts, your feedback on what I say. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I'd also love to talk to you. The way that I would do that on a podcast is we would have a Zoom meeting and record the audio, and then I'd make it into a podcast. But when I started this podcast a year ago in February, so I'm coming up on the year anniversary, I really didn't know what it was going to look like. But I had become so dissatisfied with life. I had become so dissatisfied with my job. I was angry all the time because I knew I was not doing what I was supposed to do. And I've said this many times on this podcast. Some of you may be tired of hearing it, those of you that are long-term listeners, but from the time Christopher died, I knew I wanted to talk about the grief impact on our world, that I needed to tell the story, that I needed to talk about it and try to create some cultural change so it's not so taboo to talk about our grief, so that we're not expected to, just bottle it up and continue on and, just ignore the fact that someone we love died and left this world. And so that urge was very, very strong. And then I'm getting up there in age, and I'm sure those of you that have lost children, lost spouses, think about your own mortality also. So then I started to worry about what would happen if I died before I finished what I was supposed to do. So I started this podcast on a hope and a prayer, and here we are a year later. I believe it was 937 minutes of content. It's amazing to me that I had that much to say about grief and continue to have to say about grief. And so thank you for everyone that listens. So it's 2023. It's a brand new year. What I was thinking about talking about today is, what does a brand new year mean to someone who's grieving? I was like, what would my New Year's resolutions be? Like, I don't even know if I do New Year's resolutions. I guess maybe I don't know if I'd call creating my podcast last year a New Year's resolution, because it was deeper than that. It was this longing, this pressure, this knowing that part of my journey in this world was that I had to tell this story, that it was imperative that I tell this story. And the benefits from telling the story, I cannot emphasize this enough. And it's one of the things that I wanted to talk about as we go into 2023. There were some unanticipated benefits to talking about Christopher dying. One is I feel less alone. Two is I feel more understood. But in a weird way, I feel more confident. Now I get on this microphone and I sit here and I talk. And that's all. I just talk. And I take it on faith that people are listening to me. And so, in essence, it's just me and the microphone. And it has been so absolutely healing to do that. And then when I get positive feedback or people say, I felt that way too, or I'm so glad you do this, it's validating for me. It's validating that urge or that itch that I've had since he died, that this was something I had to do. And so I want to encourage all of you who might be having similar kinds of experiences to follow that instinct, follow that, whatever it is. Because your brain and your heart will lead you where you need to go. The problem in our society is that we don't trust it. Look at me, it took me 12 years. But I knew the day after he died, I woke up and said, this sucks. Oh my God. I had no idea it was this awful. And how come I didn't know? I'm a therapist. I should know. I help people. No one ever told me it would be that bad. No one. We didn't talk about it at school. You study research. It wasn't in the research. It wasn't in my teachers. No one talked about how bad it was. No one. And I knew without a doubt after Christopher died, but it took me 12 years. Don't let it take 12 years for you. Follow your heart. Follow your heart to where it leads to you. For some people, talking about it like I do might be healing for them. For other people, it might be writing a book. For other people, it might be writing poetry. Whatever the message is or the urge that you have, just follow it. Because it will lead you to where you need to go. And this podcast has been one of the most healing things that I've ever done for myself in terms of my grief. Because every one of you that listens to my story heals me. And I hope there's something that I say that helps heal you. I hope that there's something that I say that will bring some peace to you. Because I remember those early days of losing my son and how god awful they were. So that's the first thing in 2023. I would like to say to you is to follow your heart. And I believe that we're bombarded with messages from society. And not only that, but it's even worse now that we have social media, because there's a benefit to social media and then there is a side effect to social media. So the side effect to social media is, when I posted it as a reel, but I don't think it got posted last week, is sometimes I see these memes, comments from other people, and I think I'm not getting this grief right. And that negative self-talk comes in and interferes with the messages that are coming from my heart that tell me what I need to do. And it's really hard sometimes when you're in the middle of the grieving to stay focused on what your own heart tells you to do. As an example, I had a friend tell me in my early grieving days that he needed to go to the cemetery um, more often to help ease my grief. And I just got mad at her because she was trying to push me to do something that I wasn't ready to do because I had to do it in my own time. Like when it was time for me to go to the cemetery, my heart was going to tell me when it was time to go there. And those are the kind of things that I'm saying to you. And there's a lot of, support groups out there. There's support grief coaches and now seeing these things called death doulas, and all these people have a lot of opinions about what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done, but it never can replace what comes from your heart. So going into 2023, I hope that you all listen to your heart. Listen to you. It will guide you where you need to be. And the second thing is, I dislike this time of year very much. Very much. Because the next 6 months are incredibly hard for me with my grief. It's almost like July to the 1st of November is like I get a break from my grief. Like I'm not being triggered on a daily basis that this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. And starting in January, all my triggers come again, all over again. Because Christopher started getting sick in January. Started complaining about not being able to sleep. He was pretty frustrated with getting a job. He just completed a nursing program. He was working in a pet store. He's like, I didn't go to college to work at a pet store. I need to make money. There was just so many things that were going on. And he kept complaining about, I'm having belly pain, I'm having this pain, I'm having that pain. It was all because of his cancer. His girlfriend had broke up with him that was pregnant with his baby. He would have a daughter born in March. Got diagnosed with cancer in April. His 25th birthday, he found out he had Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 5 3B. And then he died in June. So there's almost like a trigger month from now until then. So I really dislike this period of time. And I'm trying to figure out how to get through it. So that's what my New Year's looks like. So what do your New Year's look like? I know it's another trip around the sun, as they say, without my son. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I was like, so I've heard people say that, he doesn't come to visit me as much anymore. I feel like he's perhaps a little bit distant, more so than he was when he first died. And there's almost a dreamlike quality to it. Like I wake up sometimes in the morning and I'm wondering if it's true. So I'm back to that stage of grief again. Do you remember that in early grief when you would wake up in the morning and be like, nah, it's not true. He's not really dead. It's kind of where I am. And I don't know if that's accurate for the stage of grief I'm in. I don't know. I just know that I wonder about what kind of life he's living. And if he had lived, if he would have had children. No. Would he have a wife? Where would they live? Would he be close to us? And the other thing that kind of gets me frustrated is I see a lot of people walk in the face of the earth that don't appreciate the fact that they can. And that's extremely frustrating. Is they don't seem to be grateful. Where I'm sure there's lots of people that have died that would have loved to be given the chance or the opportunity to stay living. For whatever reason, I don't know how it happens or who picks or who chooses who gets to stay or who gets to go, but I know Christopher didn't agree with the choice to go. I know that for a fact. That he wanted to stay here and be here for his daughter, and I'm pretty positive that that's one of his greatest regrets. And the irony of this, so I talk about this all of the time, is that in order to understand your grief, you have to go into the past. You have to go into your childhood experiences and try to understand your reaction to the loss through that lens in the context of your life. So after Christopher died, I was just like, could not figure out. I was like I grew up without my father. I don't know how exactly that happened, but so just briefly, I'll tell you. So I did not find out until I was in my mid-20s that my dad that I thought was my biological dad was not. That he was actually my adopted dad. And people don't do that to your kids. If you've lost your spouse recently, don't do that. It was so devastating. It rocked my world to know that my dad wasn't my dad. It was horrific. So, family generational patterns being what they are, I recreated that dynamic with Christopher. And so his biological father gave him up for adoption also to my ex-husband. So I'm like, what are the chances? What are the chances that would happen to three of us, 3 generations? And I'm extremely interested in genealogy. So I went and looked at my genealogy charts and went, you know what? 8 generations of my family, the children have grown up without one of their biological parents. And my only unknown was my grandma. And then I was talking to my aunt, and my aunt says, well, it's rumored that she did grow up without one of her biological parents. I was like, holy cow. So 8 generations. This is a generational pattern that went through my family for 8 generations. It doesn't make it easier at all. And I would love to say it stops with me, but it didn't. So maybe it'll stop with Colin. I don't know. But it's amazing to me that it ended up that way. So Christopher's daughter was 3 months old when he died. And it was just devastating to him. So I think about these other people that have had near-death experiences or they've had cancer and they survived it, or other catastrophic illnesses and they survived it, and they don't seem to show an appreciation for being alive. It really bothers me. And in some ways, I'm going to be honest about this, in some ways I get a little jealous because I'm like, why couldn't my child been one of the ones that survived? And damn YouTube, they've been doing really fundraising for St. Jude's Hospital. They're saying this kid survived and this kid survived. And that is great for those parents. But I am triggered every time I see that commercial. Because my child was not one of the ones that survived. And I can't even imagine if I had a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old that didn't survive, what that would be like. I think I would be so, so angry. And I don't know how you get past the anger. Yeah, I don't know how you get past it. I'm not so angry at. I'm angry at his friends. That always comes up this time of year too, and it's his friends that were in the room that let him die. I just don't know how they live with themselves. Yeah, so when I think about another round around the sun, I think about them. And I think about the fact that they get to go into 2023, but he didn't. And I'm not saying he could have saved their lives or that they could have saved his life. But I think they could have. If they had noticed he had died, they had done CPR sooner, could they have brought him back sooner? And that doesn't mean he would have survived the cancer. Maybe it just means he would have survived that moment in time. I don't know. But I do know that when it comes to the new year, these are the things that I think about. So I think about them. And I don't know where they are now. But I bet they have families and I bet they have kids. And I bet they don't think about Christopher. Not like I do. Yeah. And I'm like, how could you? How could you be those kind of people? I don't know what I would be like. And then I think about 2023. And this is the part about being a grieving mom that I don't think other people understand. I haven't really ever talked to anyone that really talks about this, but I wonder who's going to make it to 2024. Will I keep all of my children? I got one left. Will my one child and his family survive till 2024? Will I survive till 2024? What about my husband? My father? Who will I lose in 2023 that'll make it to 2024? I think about those kind of things. I know that some people are like, what in the world? But that's just how the mind works. Once the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, when it comes to death, you're never the same again. You never take living for granted or getting somewhere safely for granted again. It's just part of it. You become acutely aware of grief, of death. It colors everything. Everything we do, everything we say, colors everything. So those are my thoughts going into 2023. So what are your thoughts going into 2023? I'd love to hear from them. You can leave me a message on my Instagram, my Facebook, Keep in mind I work full time, and actually I do work in an area where I don't get cell service during the day. So if it takes me a day or two to respond to you, don't take it personally because I don't always have self service. I live up here in the frozen north, and that's just kind of how it is sometimes. And I would really like some feedback on what kind of topics you would like to hear about. I would like to, and also if you're interested in talking about your grief. I know it's scary. I know it's scary to be that vulnerable. But there's something about doing it that's so freeing. And the feedback that you will get and the outpouring of support that makes it all worth it. So thank you for listening. This is Christy Kai, the Wonder Dog, signing off. You have a great week, and I'll see you next week.